Hey guys, according to this smart device right here, we're live, and let me try to get that little bit of glare off of there if I can. Keep that glare, that's a little better. Still some glare right above my head there. There's some lights up here also. Maybe I can overpower that with another light on over here. Might help a little bit. See if that'll get rid of that glare a little bit and make it a little bit better. Let's see here, guys. That might help a little bit. Got rid of that little glare right above my head there. All right, guys. Welcome to another, I guess, installment. I'm trying to get myself comfortable here because I rushed to get up here. Another installment of Legally Armed America Friday Night Gun News. As you guys know, and as I always try to do, I'm going to stroll in here casually and slowly at first, like I usually try to do, simply because I want to give everybody a chance to kind of roll in here. As I see you guys are pounding in here at a pretty fast pace, so looks like we're accomplishing that. So anyway, I'm kind of just jibber-jabbering right now to give you guys time to get in here. Welcome to everybody. Hope everyone out there is having a good Friday afternoon, Friday night, depending on where you are. 8 o'clock East Coast, 7 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock on the West Coast. And let me scroll down here and get to where you guys are. Wow, this is pretty incredible. I don't know who gets in here so quickly, but we already have 4 thumbs ups on this live video, and it's only been live for 1 minute, and 2 thumbs downs already. So that cracks me up. 2 people have already come. Roll call here. Shout out to everybody. Andrew Dalton Ray, how you doing? Adam Brock, 17 Kilo 35, Manuel Favuza, Max Jenner, Guns for You, G4U, Jerry Hargett, Jarrett's in here. What's up, Jarrett? Let's see, the Wolverine, Super Duper Paratrooper, I like that. I might have said Adam Brock already, but if I haven't, hey Adam. The Sprinkler Ninja, that's pretty funny. Gun-loving Grandpa Stanley, hey Grandpa Stanley. Richard Portella, Armando Contreras. We'll just give shout outs as the hour goes on. For those of you that are new, we do this from 7 p.m. Central Standard Time to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. I try to every Friday night. Not always quite that successful, but I try. And what we typically do here is I will pick some gun topics to go over for us to somewhat review legislative type issues. And if we've got any new guns to talk about or whatever, we'll do that. And just kind of sit here and complain for about an hour about all the things that are happening, people going against our Second Amendment rights. As always, it is summertime in South Louisiana. This gun room that I have, it tends to get a little warm. So I have an air conditioner going right now. So if you hear like a hum in the background, that is my air conditioning unit, and I'm not turning it off. This is Louisiana. I ain't turning it off. If I turn that thing off right now, based on the proximity of where my gun room is located, with where the sun's hitting on my house and all that, this gun would this room would probably heat up about 10 degrees in 15 minutes. And that's probably not an exaggeration, guys. That's how brutal our sun can be down here. I know last week we had somebody from Arizona in here. They had 114 degree temperature. I know we have our own gauges of what's hot, but I think our heat with our humidity is pretty nasty. Although I have been out in the Vegas area in 114 degree temperature before, and it was nasty. It was suffocating. So yeah, I guess you can find miserable wherever you go, right? Let's see real quick. A couple more, you guys. Mr. F&H is in here. Daniel Waters, Spiderface 666, 2326 Texas. Big Mo, what's up, Big Mo? Let's see, Fish Hadley, Seething Nuclear Chaos, and I think I've pretty much got everybody else. So hey guys, a couple things I want to talk about, some legislative news that's kind of going on. I don't know if these are really, it's hard to tell sometimes whenever you're talking about a state that you don't live in. Many times I can talk about Louisiana law and I can have a pretty good feel and gauge what the community is probably thinking and how the constituents are, or what pressure the constituents are going to put on the politicians down here in Louisiana and some of the surrounding states. Texas, usually I can kind of tell, but these other states, it's hard for me to tell. So when someone is putting forth other measures in other states, I don't know if the consensus is behind it or if they're against it. So, hey, Freedom for All, yeah, joining from Arizona. You might be the one that told me about it last week. Yeah, man, Daniel Waters started his job at Cracker Barrel. Good job, man. Keep it up. I know a guy that worked his way up from Cracker Barrel, and he's actually a big-time real estate guy now. Owns a bunch of homes and properties and stuff. So they seem to have a pretty good plan on how they can help you out. But anyway, there was some legislation that came up this past week, and it's kind of interesting how, I guess in some of these very liberal progressive pockets of the United States, there's similar legislations that seem to pop up. Up in Seattle, there's the mayor up there has some wacky new law that she's trying to pass along with, I think, one of the city council members. And what it is basically a mandatory law that you lock your weapons up. And you can receive some pretty stiff fines, penalties, and potential arrests based on you know, how many times it happens and things of that nature. But it's a mandatory lockup of your gun no matter who lives in the house. So let's say it's not along the lines of, okay, maybe you have kids in the house, so by law we want you to lock your guns up. It's everybody in Seattle that they're saying has to lock their guns up, regardless of who lives in the home. So a 60-year-old man living by himself would still be susceptible to being arrested in the event, again, I know your follow-up question is probably similar to mine. How are they going to know? You know, did they storm your house or whatever? Well, you never know. I mean, what if you're attacked in your home and, you know, they come in your home and they see a gun that's not locked up or something like that? I think these types of laws are nearly, if not completely, impossible to ever enforce. But all it takes is a law being passed in a place like Seattle where you have some wacko mayor that wants to make an example out of somebody, and you get a law like this that gets passed, and you never know how it's going to be enforced, at what level it's going to be enforced. The scary thing about laws that are not stringently enforced all the time, although a lot of the lawmakers or the, I guess the law enforcement officers out there, many of them will not necessarily enforce some of these anti-gun laws. I mean, regardless of what your opinion is of law enforcement, which I support law enforcement, but regardless of what your opinion of them is, a lot of them will not support anti-Second Amendment laws out there, at least the ones I know. Down south, that's not a thing. Law enforcement does not support gun control measures. So the problem is when you have laws that are passed that are very anti-gun, but you have law enforcement who are pro-gun, the issue you get into is, yeah, law enforcement doesn't necessarily enforce those laws. However, that could be the one little thing that you let your guard down, and all of a sudden you get hammered on several of these things that before you were relatively safe doing, but now all of a sudden you get some police chief or a sheriff or somebody like that all of a sudden wants to fully and heavily enforce these types of things that all along everybody had kind of peace of mind because local law enforcement would not enforce. And that's where laws like this that you might be thinking, oh, nobody will really enforce that. As long as that law is on the books, it's very dangerous to us law-abiding pro-Second Amendment people. And that's the things that I worry about. I worry about those things, you know, the ones that'll sneak up on you. This particular law also, not only will it make it or make you a criminal if you don't lock your gun up, but, and this is the thing that bothers me more than anything, if your gun is stolen, you also could be held accountable for that thing being stolen. Now, if it gets stolen on top of that, if you don't report it stolen, now again, this is one of those, how do they know it's stolen if you haven't reported it? But if you don't report a gun stolen, you still could be penalized and fined and potentially jailed if in fact it's found that that gun was stolen and you did not report it. So if it winds up at a crime scene somewhere and somehow or another gets traced back to you, they may ask you, well, why is your gun at this crime scene? And you're like, well, it got stolen 2 months ago. Okay, fine. We're gonna fine you $1,000 and penalize you. You know, That's the thing that's scary, because these things can be enforced at some point. Now, I want to take this one step further. I don't know that this Seattle law doesn't do what I'm about to explain, but there's a very, very similar Oregon law, same part of the country. The wackos seem to have gravitated up there. There's an Oregon law that, along the same lines, that makes it mandatory to lock up every firearm in a house. It doesn't matter if it's loaded. You have to lock them all up. Doesn't matter if you have kids in the house, lock them all up. Okay? Mandatory. The scary part of that, and I'm reading from my notes here, get this, guys. This is going to blow your minds if you've not already heard this. For 5 years, if your gun gets stolen, lost or stolen, let's say today, June 1st, I have a gun that gets lost or stolen, either one, for 5 years from this date, till June 1st of 2023, I can and will be held accountable for anything that happens with that gun. In other words, it's going to be my responsibility. I will be tied to that gun as if I still had it and performed whatever crime it might be used in. Even if it were stolen. I get the irresponsible nature of losing a gun. I get that. That's irresponsible. But if your gun was stolen from you, if a criminal took your gun, came into your home and stole your gun, you can be held liable, based on this law in Oregon, for 5 years. So if somebody goes and kills somebody, murders somebody, it's as if Oregon is seeing you being the one that pulled the trigger. Now, what always perplexes me in these types of laws, all right? I think we can all agree that when somebody shoots somebody, that person is a criminal, right? Do you know any non-criminals that murder people? I don't. I'm going to go out on a limb here and tell you that I think every single person who's ever shot and killed another person on purpose is a criminal, right? By definition. So these criminals who steal these guns are getting less lenient sentences than we get as law-abiding non-criminal gun owners. Why does it look to me that the left is constantly trying to find a way to criminalize law-abiding citizens? And why does it seem like in the same breath, they're constantly trying to decriminalize what criminals do? Isn't that incredible? I sit here in the comfort of my own room, and believe me, I feel very safe in this room, if you know what I mean. I've done nothing wrong. I've never fired a gun at a person before in my life. I would if they were attacking me or my family in a heartbeat, but I never have. I've never had to. I've never done anything illegal with a gun. I've never stolen a gun. I've never misused a gun. But I would be considered more of a potential threat by progressive liberals than a guy who has already committed a crime. They're trying to design a law to make me a criminal. A 5-year window. Now, I'm going to tell you another thing. Who rolls the dice? Who goes, all right, 5 years it is. 5 years? Why not 1? Why not 5 weeks? Why not 5 months? Why not 50 years? Who grabs 5 years? Where does that even come from? Did you have some kind of a study that you figured out that after 5 years, the gun's not really deadly in a criminal's hands anymore? I mean, seriously, when a guy steals a gun, after 5 years, does he lose the will to commit a crime with it anymore? So these people that don't know anything about guns are continuing to pass laws that negatively affect honest law-abiding gun owners. And again, protect the criminals. How many times do we have to listen to this same song and dance where we are looked at more as the potential problem than the people who are already proven as being the problem? Because believe me, if somebody steals my gun, they were already probably a criminal, but by the time they reached over and grabbed that gun, at this point, when they grabbed that gun, they were a criminal. Now, I've still done nothing wrong. By every definition of the law, I'm still a victim. But these liberal progressives are trying to pass laws to make the victim now the criminal. That's like a lady who's being raped getting raped for wearing what she's wearing. You shouldn't have worn that. That's your fault. How stupid? How stupid can we get? You know, we wonder why other countries laugh at us. And of course, the liberal progressives will say they laugh at us because of Donald Trump. No, they don't. They really don't. You got to get out more if you really believe that. The rest of the world is, you're seeing what's happening in the world right now. They're respecting us. Nobody's jacking with the U.S. right now. Nobody is. Have you heard from ISIS lately? Have you heard from ISIS? I haven't. Have you? I heard from them for 8 years during Obama. My point is, we are finally getting to where I think things are getting right in the nation, and the rest of the country, or excuse me, the rest of the countries out there laugh at us whenever we pass these little stupid laws like this. They look at this kind of stuff and they think, okay, that's just stupid. You know, that, and most of these countries like what they see when we pass laws like this because, look, the world is not only full of, the world is made of haters that don't want to see anybody succeed. And of course, we've been kicking everybody's butt in the world for a very long time. So everybody wants to see us not succeed. Of course, no one will admit in the general public that they want us to fail, but they do. They want us to fail. And when we pass laws like this that criminalize honest, law-abiding citizens, other countries look at that and go, I mean, they see us imploding from the inside. They see us passing these kind of laws that just turn everything upside down and make the criminals the good guys and the good guys the bad guys. And they laugh at us. That's why the rest of the world laughs at us. Not because of Donald Trump, because of these stupid laws that we pass that make no sense and they're backwards. Other countries aren't passing stupid stuff like this. As much as I don't want to be like these other countries, because that's why I'm glad I'm here, it's also why they all want to be here, regardless of the little smart comments they say. I don't know. I don't want to dwell on this too much because it makes you mad, because I don't like the fact that we can continue to pass laws like this, and those of us that do everything we can to not lose our gun rights, it's like they keep whittling down at our, there's no gray areas anymore. Like them trying to, gun show loopholes, for instance. Gun show loopholes. All right, what they mean is private sales. And look, I don't care who you talk to. When somebody says gun show loopholes, they mean, or if you hear universal background checks, what they mean is they want to criminalize private sales. That's what they mean. Or somebody giving a gun to somebody else. That's their code. When they say gun show loophole or universal background check, that's code for criminalized private sales or private transactions. You know, they're trying very, very hard on that. And the way they take it upon themselves to basically hoodwink good people. What I mean by that is they'll go poll people. They'll go to a busy street corner and they'll have this very, you know, independent survey that they want to ask people. And they'll ask them stupid things like, what's your favorite color? You know, what's your favorite hamburger, Burger King or McDonald's? Then they'll ask this very, very open-ended, blanket, vague question. Do you support universal background checks? Well, most people don't know what they really mean, because there's no real definition of a universal background check. And most people will think, or they'll reword it even worse than that. They'll say, do you support background checks on all guns? Okay, on all guns, or all gun purchases or transactions. Now, most people, because I mean, statistically speaking, the vast majority of people have gun transactions and purchases that happen from a store. They know that they have filled out a 4473. They've done a background check. So they're thinking, well, of course I support background checks on gun purchases. You know, I don't think anybody ought to be able to go into an academy or a gun shop and buy a gun without a background check. Well, then they get marked down to universal background checks. Then my point is, the left will take this poll, not explaining what they mean by universal background checks. In other words, they won't ask that person, Okay, well, by the way, when I ask you if you support universal background checks, do you know that means also you wouldn't be able to have a private sale, or you wouldn't be able to transfer that gun legally without there being a background check? You do realize that, right? They don't ask that question. Mark my word, they have never asked that question as a follow-up. Hey, you do realize what I'm talking about. They don't want to elaborate. But they turn around and take those exact same numbers, and Bloomberg and his little crew run out there and they post these numbers everywhere and say 80% of Americans support universal background checks. And then they explain what they mean by a background check. And by universal background check, we mean private sales, private transfers, and all that. So they're really open and upfront with that whenever they're explaining to you what their poll results found. But whenever they were taking that poll, they were not explaining it the same way they just explained it to the media. They were very vague about it, very narrow about that. They were it's very secretive. So they take this poll, it's a dishonest poll to begin with, and they bring those poll results over here to this other, to the media, and then they make their definitions known of what they're really looking for. Now, you know one thing they never do? And I would do this. If I had my own poll, I would do this. You show me a video, show me one, where these poll people or polling people went out and asked these questions based on universal background checks, and it's a video. Show me a video. They never, ever video it. Never. Because they don't want you to see their method for collecting that polling data. They never do that. Now, I would do that because I want people to see. I want to sit down and ask somebody, do you know what that really means, universal background check? Do you know it means private sales? Because I guarantee you, most people, whenever you let them know that's what I'm talking about private gun sales, I'm willing to bet that most people will go, wait a minute. So, if I want to gift a gun by giving it to my son or my cousin or my nephew, I can't do that? Nope. Universal background checks, buddy, that's what we're talking about. I'm willing to bet most people will go, wait a minute, I didn't know that's what you were talking about. No, I don't support that. But they don't back that up. But they make it sound like when they get their poll numbers and they go to the media, they make it sound like all these people over here were on board with it. Oh yeah, you know, they were fully on board. 80% of America wants this. That's not true. That's so dishonest. So dishonest. I get that they're getting paid. You know, that's the funny thing. You hear all these clowns up there talking about people paid off. They're bought and paid for by the NRA. That's NRA money. Come on, man. I would be willing to bet that there's just as much anti-gun money out there. Just as much. That flows from those guys to the anti-gun people. Easily just as much. Bloomberg is a freaking billionaire. And he is wanting to go to his grave as being the gun control czar of the world. He's going to spend every bit of his money. $1 billion? That man's spending all these little spin-off little Everytown for gun safety and crazy moms that don't know guns. All those little organizations like that. They're all funded by Bloomberg money in some way or the other. Either he pipes all his money into Everytown for gun safety and then they pay all these other organizations or whatever. But it's all coming from him. Of course, they get all these donations and things like that. So my point is, the left is easily as heavily funded as the right, and the right ain't just funded by the NRA. Let me explain something to you. The NRA, I support the NRA. There's things I don't agree with that they say, and that's why I don't just wholeheartedly say I am the NRA. I'm not. I don't agree with some of their things, but the NRA doesn't represent every single gun owner out there. I would say a percentage of gun owners are represented, and I didn't say the vast percentage. A percentage of gun owners are represented by the NRA. There's some people out there that hate the NRA, some people out there that are okay with it, and some people that love the NRA. So it's funny that the left can find one thing to hang on and they can demonize the NRA. You know what they're doing whenever they demonize the NRA? Two things. One, all they're doing is jacking up the membership of the NRA. Because the right, and especially pro-gun people, when you try to mess with them and try to either boycott or be anti-something on the right or the conservative or with guns, what do? We spend more money with that company, like Chick-fil-A, for instance. Oh, we don't like Chick-fil-A because they like God. Okay. So you're going to boycott Chick-fil-A now? And we as conservatives are sitting back going, really? All right. Guess where I'm going to eat for the next 16 years? Chick-fil-A. And the next weekend when you drive to your local Chick-fil-A, you're going to wait an hour and 15 minutes for food because these guys are making serious bank. Because people on the right, for one, we have jobs, okay? We have expendable cash. We can spend that money wherever we want to. And also, we're actually principled people. And I'm not saying everybody on the left doesn't, nobody on the left doesn't have jobs, although there's a good percentage of them. But we're loyal. We're principled people. When we believe in something, we stick to that. I have never heard a true Second Amendment person go, you know, I don't really need an AR-15, so if you want to ban them, that's okay. No, if they do, they really weren't truly Second Amendment supporting in the first place, all right? But that's the thing. I mean, we actually do things with our wallets that make a difference. We will boycott the crap out of somebody. We will stop buying from somebody else and start buying from somebody else if we feel the threat of some stupid little boycott. So what the left has done by trying to demonize the NRA and make the NRA the face of guns, excuse me, and the face of what anti-gun people need to be against, all they've done is jacked up the damn membership of the NRA. So they've made the NRA stronger by trying to attack it, and all these other little gun organizations, Gun Owners Against America and National Association of Gun Rights, and I know there's others. They make more people go to them too, because we all feel the need to support these people who are trying to protect our own Second Amendment rights, because we know the left is wacko. They're wacko. And they're doing all these stupid things. So what do? We feel like these organizations now need more money to fight off this crazy attack from the left, so we support them even more. So Michael Bloomberg and all you crazy anti-gun people, the NRA thanks you because you've boosted their membership. You know, the NRA was getting a black eye because of all the crazy little stuff that was going on, that people were not supportive of them, like the way they supported bump stock ban. And I think they might have supported the raising the age to 21. I might be misspeaking there, so I don't want to go that far. I don't remember what else it was that they supported. So they kind of got a black eye. So the NRA's membership was doing this. Then we get a couple of, I think the Parkland shooting was probably the real kicker. And everybody attacked the NRA while the NRA's membership was starting to do this because people were dissatisfied with some of their decisions. And then what did their membership do? It went up like that. Because all of a sudden people started calling out the NRA, acting like they were responsible. Oh, you've got blood on your hands. That's cool. Guess what? I'm going to sign up for a new NRA membership. So again, the left is kind of stupid how they do those things. It makes a great bumper sticker or t-shirt for them. You know, it's a catchy little slogan. They can put out a cool little meme on Facebook, but it doesn't mean anything because it never really hurts anything. Nothing the left ever does to try to boycott anything ever really hurts anything. In fact, again, like I said, they usually send businesses over the top and in the black. They'll take them out of the red and go into the black because they make so much money off of people actually supporting them at that point. Look, most of the people that claim they're going to boycott whoever because they're pro-gun, they weren't shopping there anyway. All these little idiots that were laying on the floor at the Publix over in Florida because this little clown from Parkland told everybody to do a die-in because Publix was supporting, I guess, giving money to the NRA, or I think it was even more vague than that. I think they were giving money supporting a political candidate that had accepted NRA money. So Publix wasn't even directly supporting the NRA. They were giving money to a candidate who also was getting money from the NRA. So these little clowns go over there and lay down in the grocery store. That doesn't do anything. You see these people stepping over them to go in there and buy their groceries anyway. Look, I'm going to try to say this as nicely as I can. The left is not intimidating. I don't look at anyone from the left with their scarf around their neck, their man bun, and their little rolled up jeans, skinny jeans. It's not threatening to me. So if they want to boycott a place, I will walk right past them, buy what I want, and probably two of what I want because they're boycotting it, and I'm going to leave with my purchase. I don't care that they're there. I don't care. I am so not intimidated by anyone from the left. Just not. So their efforts to boycott things fail miserably all the time. Now, it makes for great TV and it makes for great headlines because guess what? The media loves it. They take a picture, 16 people boycott Publix. So they get them all the crowd in there and get a close-up crop shot of 16 people all together and say, look at all these people boycotting. If they were to pan back, they would see a grocery store full of people that were like, why are you wasting my time? Get out of my way so I can shop. And I'll be willing to bet there was plenty, because they're not principled and they're not loyal people. I guarantee you there were plenty of liberals that were also shopping. Because again, they don't practice what they preach. They're not like us. We are principled people. I will not spend a penny where an anti-gun establishment tries to enforce anti-gun legislation. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go, oh man, you know, I really like Buffalo Wild Wings, so even though they're anti-gun, man, I like those chicken wings. I'm going to go in there anyway. Nope, sorry. Whenever the Buffalo Wild Wings, I have the place where I work is in the same exact parking lot as a place where a Buffalo Wild Wings is. I used to love going to watch football, eat wings and drink beer in the Buffalo Wild Wings right across the parking lot. Guess how many times I've been there since they put their sign up that said no guns allowed on these premises? 0. I can get wings from Domino's, and I can get Domino's to bring those to where I work or to my house. I don't need to go into an anti-gun establishment. No matter how much I like their wings or their cold beer, not interested anymore. But we're principled. We stick to our values. Whenever we feel a certain way about something, we stick to it. The left doesn't do that. And so again, my point, Publix was probably full of progressive liberals who were shopping. They're just doing it like this because they're ashamed that they don't have any principles, but not ashamed enough to shop. So they don't want you to see them, but they're going anyway. So anyway, I'm so fed up with the hypocrisy that the left throws at us. It's the most amazing thing to me to see how a grown person, a human being, can be so hypocritical in front of people, in people's faces, and act like they're not hypocritical. How they can do the things that they do and think that nobody notices or nobody sees it. That's what makes me think that there's kind of a psychological issue, kind of a tweak in the brain, something just not quite right with a person from the left. Because I'm very self-aware. When I do things, I know if other people approve. I know if other people think I'm full of crap or not. I can read body language. I can read facial expressions. I can understand and comprehend words. The left's not real good at that. They'll do things and then they'll act like we don't notice when we're all sitting back going, no, dude, you're full of crap. I know you are. I can read you. Where we're pretty good at doing that. We're pretty self-aware. So we try to do things by the book and on the up and up because we think everybody else sees things like we do, that we can read BS and facial expressions and body language and things like that. Unfortunately, that's a skill that not everybody has. So that's why I think sometimes the left feels like they can actually get away with it when they're not getting away with it. They don't understand that you don't think the same way that they do. Let's see here, guys. Where are we at on time? 7:30. Oh, one thing I want to show you guys real quick. Let's move on to something kind of cool that I stumbled across this week. This is a blast from the past right here. This right here, if you guys can see it, let me see if you can see it. I don't know if you can see that. This is a Model 17S by Bushmaster. Now this is not the, let me say, the post-Freedom Group Bushmaster. This is the Wyndham Weaponry Bushmaster. See if you can see. You see that label right there? That label says BFI. That's Bushmaster Firearms International. And you'll notice made in Wyndham, Maine. Wyndham, Maine. The exact same place where Wyndham Weaponry makes their rifles. There's only 2 companies who have ever made rifles in Wyndham, Maine. Bushmaster and Wyndham Weaponry. And technically, it was the same people both times. If you don't know, Bushmaster is, the old Bushmaster is the same group of people, from the top down, the guys building it to the people owning it, who made Bushmaster, who invented Bushmaster. Bushmaster was bought out. It was basically sold to the Freedom Group, that same group of people who bought out Remington and screwed it up. They bought out Bushmaster. They assured the people in Windham, Maine that they would not relocate the facility when they purchased it. They said, we're not going to move you guys. We're going to stay in Windham, Maine and continue to make Bushmasters. One of the stupidest decisions ever made. The non-compete was about to run out on the guy who sold Bushmaster. And then all of a sudden, Bushmaster decided they were going to relocate to Ilion, New York, where Remington was. So they went back on their word, moved Bushmaster from Windham, Maine, over to Ilion, New York. Weeks later, non-compete ran out. The previous owner of Bushmaster turned to everybody else that made the Bushmaster rifles before they left and said, y'all want to start making rifles again? They were like, yep. So they called it Windham Weaponry. You know them because they're one of my favorite companies. They make one of the best AR-15s at the best price out there. You will not find a better AR-15 for the money. Well, the reason why I'm bringing that up is this is one of the guns that they made when they were Bushmaster before they turned into the Windham Weaponry. And this is a crazy, crazy gun. Let me show you something. This is unique. You know how you're probably looking at this thing. Guess how you, if those of you that don't know this gun, guess how you charge that gun. Look it over really good. Hopefully it's in focus enough where you can see it. Look that gun over real good. Tell me how you think you charge that gun. When you want to put a round in the chamber from the magazine, which by the way, standard AR-15 magazine, bullpup design, obviously, guys. Standard magazine goes in it. So again, what are your guesses on how you charge it? Look at this thing. Look how closed up it is. I'll show you the bottom too. All right. Let me show you how you charge this. One of the most interesting, unique designed guns in a very long time that I've seen. They don't manufacture these anymore, obviously. You know how you charge it? See the carry handle? Just like that. The back part of your carry handle is your charging handle. How about that? See my bolt? See if you can see it. Right in here. Very interesting design. In fact, let me lock it open here. There, it's locked open. How about that? That is a crazy design gun. And another thing, the trigger on this thing is terrible. You almost can hear how bad it is. It's just, it's awful. But yeah, man, this is, talk about a blast from the past. 5.56, obviously. This one is serial number 2021. Standard flash hider. In fact, you see this exact same flash hider on every single Windham Weaponry rifle that goes out today. I don't think I have one up here. I think every Windham that I have is probably downstairs. Yeah, I don't have one in here. Same flash hider though, exact same one that you're gonna find on all your Windhams today. But yeah, man, this is a crazy thing. I'm gonna go shoot it tomorrow. I've not shot this thing yet. Very, very cool. Probably, if I had to guess, probably 80s. Late 80s, early 90s maybe, when this thing came out. Again, it's the the model 17. Yeah, the model 17, M17S. M17S. If you want to do some research on it, I will do a full-blown review on it. So you'll be able to check that out. I'll fill you in on it, but it's a pretty interesting gun. There's one very similar to it that I have a picture, I'm sure, somewhere that Wyndham has, that it's basically a gold rifle, just like this. They plated the whole thing in gold. Very interesting how this gun, it actually did a lot for Bushmaster back in the day. But again, I mean, this was one that was made right, because it was made by the actual Bushmaster / Wyndham weaponry guys. So again, if you don't know my feelings on Wyndham, I truly don't think there's a better made rifle out there. It's not because I know these guys. I got to know them because I was a fan of their product before, and I just became good friends with them. Let me see if I had another gun I think I wanted to talk to you guys about. Where is it? Oh, here we go. I have gotten a lot of complaints from people that I have not finished my Cold War rifle segment, and I do apologize because I've been ridiculously busy. This bad boy right here is about to get put through the ringer. Speaking of older rifles, this is a 1969 AR-15 that rode around in the back of a cop car for all that time. For almost 50 years, this thing rode around. Very cool. If you see, it's got the 3-prong flash hider. Everything, this is, other than this not being an M16 fully automatic or anything like that, this is pretty much what the guys carried in Vietnam. So I will be doing a full review on this thing very soon, and it will end my my Cold War series, Cold War rifle series. So just so you guys know, the reason why it's taken me so long to finish this series is because all the rifles that I've done the research on, of course, the AK-47, the M14, the G3, or HK91, whichever one you want to call it, the FN-FAL, all those guns, they have a pretty interesting history, but the M16 or AR-15 has a long history, and especially during that time when it was being developed, there's so much that happened. I mean, there was so much, there was politics, there was drama, there were stupid decisions, there were good decisions, there were changes, there were upgrades, you name it. If there's anything that could have happened during the production and the distribution of a firearm, it happened on this particular one. So it's not like you just can grab one book or do a Google search and figure out what you need to do on that. So anyway, that's why it's been taking me so long, because it's way more involved on the M16 AR-15. Guys, let's get rolling real quick on the questions. If you got any questions for me or comments or whatever, if you would, remember to do @LegallyArmedAmerica. So it will be, if you'll look in your comment section, you'll see some of them are highlighted in orange. And I suppose that's right. Isn't that Jared? Jared, if you're still in here, do they just do the @ sign and then Legally Armed America? Will that highlight it like that? I haven't ever done it, so I don't know exactly how you guys are highlighting it. Let's see. Let me just scroll through some of your comments down here, and we're still really good on time. It's 7:43. Daniel Waters asked, what's the difference between a 9mm and a 10mm? 1mm. I mean, seriously, I guess quite a big difference if you're looking at ballistics and things like that. That's probably a bigger, that's more of a one-whole show topic right there, not just a one-show topic. That's a pretty detailed topic, but definitely flatter, faster, bigger, round, all of the above. Let's see. Yeah, Richard says, thanks for all you do. No, it's my pleasure. Thank you guys for coming here. I mean, I wouldn't do it if y'all weren't watching. So thank y'all for coming out. Adam Brock asked about the P365. Well, funny you should ask. I don't pile on whenever other YouTube guys and all that are piling on to guns. I like to determine whether or not it's worth anything on my own. I have had no problems whatsoever on my P365 from 6 Hour. However, the primer drag on those things has been pretty significant. Now, what you think of when you think of primer drags, the whole part, and it's probably a good example right here, a small gun like this. And that's probably not a good example, it's too small. Let's use this one right here, this Kimber Solo. The problem with primer drag is whenever and this gun is not loaded, when you have primer drag, it usually happens on a small gun like this. And what happens is the timing of the slide to get out of the way fast enough for not only for the spent round to fly out, but for that new round to come up and go into the chamber. This slide only has so far it can go back. I mean, this is a 3.5 inch slide. So it's 2 more inches makes a big difference whenever you're talking about a full-size gun or even a compact gun. So this thing, in some cases, your firing pin has not gotten out of the way yet. It's not retracted back up into the breech face. It's still protruding from the breech face. Now, we're not talking about it sticks out there for a couple of seconds. We're talking about milliseconds of this all taking place. From the time it takes for that bullet to go pow, it all happens in that fast a time. Everything is happening that quickly. The gun fires the bullet and the gun cycles in that much time. So you got to figure that firing pin really has to hustle to get out of the way and get back into that breech face. But what happens is, if you're using, in most cases, the Browning lug design, which most handguns are going to use, that thing, when it unlocks, the barrel cocks down like that because of the Browning design. Well, in some cases, if that firing pin is still sticking out and that bullet, let's say the bullet got hit like this, and at that same split second, the gun is unlocking and going down like this to let that round get out. This firing pin, if it still stayed in the same place, when this thing cocks down, you notice how my finger is dragging when this thing cocks down? Notice this finger staying in place. That's your firing pin. So it's staying exactly in one place. But the lug unlocks and does this. So when it does that, it's dragging down. So it's dragging across the front of that firing pin. There's a couple of ways to look at metal in a gun. And guys, I'm not trying to talk down to you all. If you know what I'm talking about, just disregard me. But there's a couple of ways you have to look at metal. And this is important for every piece in a gun. And it's important wherever that piece is in the gun, because not every piece needs to be the same softness in terms of metal or hardness in terms of metal. In other words, you don't get, from a metallurgy standpoint, you don't say I want all my metal to be this hard, because you don't want it to be the same hardness. Well, what's happening apparently in the SIGs is that their firing pins, even though they're MEM parts, metal injection molding, the metal injected molding is, people will say, oh, you know, you don't want MEM parts. Probably not. If you had a preference, you would want, you know, something that was forged, something that was cut out of a block of steel. I get that. But they use MEM parts in jet airplanes and all kinds of other manufacturing facilities. And my thing is, if you would use a MEM part in something that could fall from the sky, it's probably safe to use in my firearm. The problem is with SIG, it seems that maybe, and I think they're actually saying this themselves, I think I've seen some other people actually mention this, that maybe theirs is too hard. And I know what you're thinking. How can your steel be too hard? If you look into what, like the science of metallurgy, you dictate and you determine based on how hot your steel gets, how you fire it, all the things like that. You determine how hard that steel will be by the process of the metallurgy process. Okay, and again, if I'm misusing some words, I apologize, because I'm not a quote expert on this. I just half-ass understand it. If you make that metal too hard, it becomes brittle. Yes, it's hard, but that's like taking something like this, and if there's no play in it whatsoever, see how I can kind of bend this? See if I take that pin, I can bend it like that. That means this is hard, but it's not so hard that I can't bend it, because I'm strong enough to break this plastic. So if I bent it hard enough to where, and it wouldn't give, it would break. It would be too brittle, so it would snap. Same thing with metal. With metal, if you make it too hard to where it doesn't have any give or any flex whatsoever, it's going to break. And that's what I'm understanding that SIG is talking about right now. They're saying that some of these firing pins were too brittle, too hard. So when they're dragging across that face of, or dragging down across the face of that primer, in some cases it may actually be getting to the point where you've done it enough times and it's not bending, it's not absorbing that, so it's not doing this. You know, when it's dragging across, it's not bending down and then going back into place. It's staying like this, just real stiff, and it just gets to the point where it gets weak across here and it snaps off. That's what I understand the problem with SIG is. Now, that doesn't explain why some of these trigger springs are breaking also. It still could be a metallurgy issue there. It could be very possible that they just, again, too hard of metal. It's doubtful that it's too soft of metal, because it probably wouldn't be snapping like they're doing. But again, it sounds to me like it's a quality control issue that may have a little bit to do with the strength of the metal itself. So that's my short, long answer on the P365. Let's see here, guys. Can we see the STG 44? Let's see here. This is the STG 44. Just so you guys know. That's what started it all, in my opinion. Let's see, guys. Where do the rounds eject on the M1? Or I'm sorry, M17. If you'll notice, this face right here, they'll come out there. Ejection port right there on the side. Same basic place as some of the bullpups. Not like the RFB, the Kel-Tec RFB. It doesn't come out of the front. This is a Kel-Tec RFB. This is a really cool bullpup, by the way. I know a lot of people don't care for Kel-Tec. This is really cool. It's a 308, the RFB, and as it shoots, the spent casings come gently pushing out the front and just fall harmlessly to the side. Very cool. They don't go flying out. That's a pretty cool gun. Let's see. Sleepy1208 asks, would you be willing to do a video covering the Les Bear? Yeah, I could do that. I haven't done an extensive video on the Les Bear. I have the Premier 2. That's the one that has the 50-yard grouping. It's guaranteed to group to 1 inch at 50 yards. Pretty cool gun. Very nice. Let's see. Easy Edge says, I'm in the middle of setting up my range bag. What is your setup? My main setup is, I think the most durable bag on the market right now is the Drago bag. You can get them in Academy, a lot of other stores. We'll be selling them very soon also. Drago bags they're the bags that everybody else copies. If you wonder why a lot of these bags look alike, it's because Drago will come out with a design of a bag and everybody else copies it. And that's a strong bag. Now, as far as a range bag, I don't really know what you're exactly describing, but I have a couple of different configurations that I use. I have, I guess my main range bag, it's just loaded with, I keep some CLP in there, some brushes, lots of rags. I'm a big person on, I'll spray my stuff down and I'll wipe it off. You know, I want to coat stuff on my guns when I'm shooting, but I don't want them lathered up. I like to wipe off everything, all the excess stuff. And tools, I have a lot of tools. In the back of my Jeep, I keep them loaded up. M Volts asks, what was my first gun? He says, I didn't grow up with guns, just purchased my first AR-15. Congratulations. AR-15 kit, and now a big fan of building guns and shooting. It's hard to say my first gun, to identify it as my first gun, because the first gun that I guess you could say I owned was a 12-gauge shotgun that was given to me as a Christmas present by my dad and my mom. But before that, I had access to all my brothers and dad's guns growing up. So we all, you name it, we had them. 22s, I mean, we did a lot of plinking whenever I was young. If it wasn't a 12-gauge, it was probably a 22. So we did a lot of plinking. You know, we weren't a very wealthy family, so we weren't the kind of people that would go out and shoot a 30-06 all day long. You know, we'd go buy a bucket of 22 bullets and go plinking at a dam down by our camp all the time, and that was a lot of fun to us. So the first gun that I actually bought, it's kind of funny. The first shotgun I ever bought was an old Mossberg shotgun because it was $100 at a pawn shop. I wanted to go duck hunting, and I didn't want to take my good Remington. That was when Remington still made really good guns. I didn't want to take my good Remington 1100 shotgun out in the duck blind, so I went and bought a $100 Mossberg, and that's the first gun that I probably technically ever bought. First handgun I ever bought was a Glock 23, 40 caliber. They're in the assault weapons ban and the magazine capacity ban, so it's actually got, I actually have a pistol over here with a 10-round magazine in it, even though it could hold 15 rounds. So let's see. Daniel Waters asked, what would you do if you got one felony for every gun you owned? I'd go to jail. I mean, quite simply, if I got a felony for every gun I own in this room, just in this room, not anywhere else, I would be in jail. So if they passed a law making me a felony because of all the guns that I own, I would move to another country. I'm not trying to be a wise ass or a badass. If this country ever got to a point where they would make me a felon for every gun that I owned, this is not a country I want to live in anymore, honestly. I'd find somewhere else to go. You know, if Canada's got stupid, screwed up gun laws, but maybe I'd move to Canada. I'm gonna go somewhere where I can have my guns. If we ever get to that point, I don't think that'll ever happen, but if we ever did, there'd be some bigger problems than just me moving to deal with in this country. Nancy says, first time I've made it into a live program. I appreciate all your knowledge and your generosity to share it with us. Nancy, thank you for being generous enough to share your time with us. That means a lot to me. I'm just sitting here talking and babbling. You guys probably have better things to do. So it means a lot to me that you guys would come hang out with me on a Friday night like this. So, you know, I extend my generosity to you. So thank you very much for coming out. Hopefully you'll join us again. We try to do this every Friday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on same channel you're watching, Legally Armed America's YouTube channel. Let's see. What do you think? Let's see, this is the Wolverine. Says, what do you think about the most recent shooting at a middle school in Indiana? Was that the one where the teacher stopped the shooter? I think that was the one. I'm getting them confused because wasn't it in the same day? There were two different shootings. One, an unarmed teacher stopped the shooter, and then the other one, I think, somebody with a gun stopped the shooter, I believe. I'm glad for it. I mean, I know it's funny how the left picks when they want to talk about shootings, like how they ignore all the killings in Chicago of children every single day. But whenever an unarmed person stops a school shooting, the one time in probably 1,000, out of 1,000 people who stop a shooter, one time it just so happens to be an unarmed person. That's what they hang their hat on. Suddenly, see, you don't need a gun to stop a bad guy. Okay, really? How many unarmed people do you see stop shootings every single day? It's kind of rare. If you don't know the answer to that, it's kind of rare. Let's see, guys. What time is it anyway, guys? 7:58. We're about to wrap it up. I'm trying to think. Oh, one other thing that's kind of cool that I did recently, and I mentioned earlier all the research, the extensive research on the M16 and the AR-15 for the Cold War rifle segment. Those of you that are older probably recognize this. Some of you that are just gun guys might. This is pretty cool. This is basically, essentially a comic book that the U.S. government put out years ago whenever the M16 was given to all of the troops during the Vietnam War. It says the M16A1 rifle, operation and preventive maintenance. What this thing did, it's really funny. They hired a cartoonist or a comic book artist who was known for making comic books and whatnot. Again, this thing is designed just like an old Superman comic book or something like that. You know, it's printed the same way. What they did was they took this thing and they wanted to make it fun but serious. It's kind of funny because they assumed the troops would be more likely to read a comic book than they would to read another instruction manual for their gun. So they designed this thing like this to make it, quote, fun to read. And it's kind of funny too that they they drew a curvy looking woman, see her in the middle there, and put her throughout the book also, thinking that would keep people's attention, a cartoon woman. But this book is pretty cool. It's interesting how it's kind of a how to care for your rifle. This is hardback, obviously. It wasn't back then. But it was a how to care for your rifle. And it was really interesting how they put it together. If I were to read this, and I mean, I know today's a different age and a different time. I get that. But some of the things in here where it starts talking about malfunctions, as many times as they explain to you how to clear a malfunction, which I get it. You want your troops, these are guys that are going to actually fight, 20 yards from a guy shooting right back at them. But it's many times, and I wish I could find a good example, that they actually talk about why you're having problems with your gun. Hey, this is why. You need to do this instead of that. If your gun does this, malfunctions here, malfunctions there. How to handle your magazine, because if your magazine happens to do this is what's going to happen. Perfect example. Protecting your mag. Little things like that. As many times as they talk about the things that can go and might go wrong with your gun and how to clear that malfunction or whatever, I would have been scared to death. I would have been like, what? You want me to take that gun? So yeah, it would have, there's a very good chance I would have been bothered by reading this thing and taking it knowing that I was going out into battle and to shoot these people that were wanting to shoot back at me. And there's a potential of having all these problems that they felt the need to put this thing to address it. So anyway, that's an interesting thing. That's going to be kind of included in my M16 segment also on the final Cold War rifle segment that we have. So anyway, guys, I'm about to cut out of here. It is 8:02. I'm going to go ahead and cut on out of here, guys. I haven't been good at hanging on here later once everybody's done. What I'm probably going to do for a second is I may take this thing downstairs. I'm going to cut out of here and just go back downstairs, and I'm going to stay on the board and try to answer some of y'all's questions and whatnot, but I'm going to leave the live stream going. So if anybody comes in, if anybody's watching this now, and I should say now, shouldn't say now. If you're watching the recorded version of this and you're watching it now, you might want to stop watching it now because I'm not going to be talking anymore. I'm actually going to go downstairs and interact with you guys on the in the chat room. So if you have any questions or whatever, address me in the chat room, and I will be online with my iPad for a little bit longer, and we'll go over some of those things. Guys, I'll be back to cut this thing off shortly, but for now, I'm going to go downstairs and interact with you guys. So I will talk to y'all. Just keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to catch up with you guys.